Welcome to Malifaux University. Beta look at Ampersand. In this video, we'll take a look at the beta version of the brand new Ampersand models released for playtesting on Thursday, May 2nd and updated on May 8th. As far as the lore goes, Ampersand is a town at the base of the Slate Ridge populated by sentient constructs, and this drives the theme of this keyword and its models. This is one of two keywords that will be included in the new two-player starter box when it is released later this year. The artwork reflects a group of models that will likely be included in that starter box. They will be pre-assembled for ease of use for players new to the game who will need to just glue them onto their bases to get playing. Some players sneer at pre-assembled models, but whatever. The plan, as far as I understand it, is to release the one version of the master with a group of models, and then later release another box with the other titled version of the master with another set of models, and between the two boxes, you'll have most, if not all, of the models for that keyword. The beta cards for this keyword follow this pattern. In one set, we have the Clockwork Queen, Matriarch of the Machine, her Bucket Bot Totem, Steiner, the Fortune Teller, and 3 Mechanical Misfits. What will probably come in a later release is Clockwork Queen, the Paradox, her Goop Totem, the Kitchen Sink, Mr. Ambrose, and 3 self-repair bots. The cool thing is that the base sizes on these two sets of models match, so if you really wanted to, you could proxy one set for the other after the first one comes out. Also of note, Lazarus is canonically from Ampersand, but right now still does not have the ampersand keyword and is just a Frycore model. That may change later, and there is much popular demand for it, but we'll see what happens. So now let's look at these cards. Clockwork Queen, Matriarch of the Machines, comes with the Repair Bay Crew card. This card uses bolstered, impact, and staggered tokens, so nothing unusual there. On the front of the card, we see the One Robot's Trash ability, which shows us a major aspect of Ampersand model play, using remains markers. These models are going to make and remove remains markers for so many different effects you don't even know. This ability is kind of like empowering a duel, letting you remove a remains marker within 4 inches to add a positive modifier to the duel. No suit, but still cool. All the Ampersand models in the crew also get the Fixer-Upper tactical action. It costs a Soul Stone, but can heal anyone 3. With a target number of just 3, it'll be easy to get raises and get the free movement out of it too. Since it doesn't say otherwise, models can use this on themselves. Matriarch of the Machine has 2 standout abilities. Improvised Tech doubles the lethality of her impact tokens, while Creative Salvage lets you make a remains or scheme marker when she kills a model. Also take note, she currently has speed 7, so she's going to really move around the table. All the rest of the Ampersand models are speed 6, so plan on using their mobility when you play with these guys. Matriarch of the Machine has size 1 on her stat card, but we'll see if they bump that up to size 2 by the time the beta is done. Her Clockwork Gauntlet's melee attack does 2 damage, but also has a raise value of just 3, so it could likely exceed that. The Ram Trigger also lets her do this again after taking 1 damage, but she can do this only once per activation. The Shattered Crystal Magical attack has a 10-inch range, does 3 damage, and gives out staggered tokens. Both triggers are handy in that the mask lets another model take a melee attack against the same target, and a crow makes a remains marker. Since this is a magical attack, she can take it while engaged, but it just doesn't get raises. Voltaic Blast makes a remains marker within 8 inches that might do 2 damage to enemy models. If she drains a Soul Stone, she can also heal friendly models, and a Tome gives 1 an impact token. Regardless, it makes another remains token that the whole crew can use, so even if the Clockwork Queen has nowhere to go and no one to kill, she can use this tactical action to keep throwing remains markers around. Just remember, you can't have more than 5 friendly markers of the same type on the table at once. The Bucket Bot Totem has the Oil Spill ability, which makes a field of severe terrain around it. This may later be replaced by a token, but right now, this is what it is. The Pincer's attack does 2 damage and can make a remains marker, and parts delivery can be done only once per activation and makes a remains marker that gives nearby friendly models a bolstered token. One of them can also get an impact token if you get the tome trigger. BucketBot also has the resupply tactical action for the price of a soulstone, which can be used only once in the whole turn. This lets you draw 3 cards, 1 from your fate deck and 2 from your discard pile with values of 1 through 5. Those cards can, of course, be used to empower duels for positive modifiers and suits for triggers, which can guarantee more tokens and remains markers. Moving on to Steiner, the big piano construct. This will be a nice one to keep close to other models, since Steiner can give another Ampersand model a bolstered token at the end of Steiner's activation with the A Song for the Occasion ability. Steiner's piano hammer does 3 damage and can give a staggered token. The giant crossbow also does 3 damage, but has a raise value of 3, so could easily do more damage. He can use the Play You Out tactical action only once, so it really is a good one to keep as the signature action. This one moves other Ampersand models within 2 inches of Steiner up to 3 inches, but this does not affect Steiner itself since this is a pulse. If you get the ram trigger, Steiner can take another swing with the piano hammer. The Fortune Teller has the famous Chatty ability, which forces enemy models within 6 inches to discard a card if they want to take the Interact action. So this is a handy model to park near scheme and strategy markers. Just keep in mind this puts a pretty big target on its back, as your opponent will get tired of this pretty quickly. The Crystal to the Head attack does 1 damage, 2 if you get the trigger, but you'll have more fun with the Predict Your Death magical attack. This does 2 damage, lets you look at the top 3 cards of your opponent's deck, discard 1, and rearrange the other 2. If you drain a soulstone, another member of your crew gets to attack the target, but there are 2 triggers to choose from for tomes. Premonition lets you look at the top card of your fate deck and discard it if you want to, while Draw Out Secrets makes a scheme marker in base contact with the target, which is a cool way of making a scheme marker 10 inches away. Lastly, the Fortune Teller has the Intuition tactical action, which can be used only once per turn. This simply lets you rearrange the top 3 cards of your fate deck, so it's your call whether to do this before the Fortune Teller attacks someone or after, setting your next model up for success. Finally, the mechanical misfit minions round out the first version of this crew. Other than armor, they have no abilities on the front of their card. They do have both a melee and a missile attack, both of which can do 2 damage. Of course, that'll be 3 if they get an impact token from the Clockwork Queen, or from their improvised ammo tactical action. This says ally only, but does not say other ally, so each of these guys could totally use this on themselves before using their attack actions. I'll take a brief moment now to thank all those who were patrons at the time this video was made, especially Mats by Mars, Griff, Suttergay, Tom, Alan, James, Jason, Jeremy, Christian, Mikolai, Oleg, and Travis, and many more at the free student tier. Your support is essential to bringing these videos to life. The second titled version of the Clockwork Queen is The Paradox. She comes with the Trash Heap crew card, which adds some impressive combat options to the crew. First, every Ampersand model gains the Load the Cannon ability, which increases the power bar on this card every time one of them removes a remains marker. The next ability, This is Perfect, gives you a perfect reason to remove them. If you are within 4 inches of a remains marker at the end of your activation, you can remove one to heal one. That then plays into the previous ability and increases the power bar. You may want to keep a 6-sided die handy and just turn it as you load this bar. Unique Ampersand models, so everyone but the minions, get the Trash Cannon. This is a magical attack, so it can't get raises, but it has an 8-inch range and a skill 6, doing as much as 6 damage when it's fired, depending on how far you charged up the power bar. Once any model fires it, you drop the power bar back to 0 and start removing remains markers again to charge it up. On the flip side of the Trash Heap crew card, we see a new token, Improvised Part. You'll put one of these on an Ampersand model and remove it to let the model take a tactical action printed on another Ampersand model's card. The other model can't be the Clockwork Queen, and it has to be within 6 inches. So let's take a look at the Paradox Clockwork Queen. Right away you should notice that her speed is only 5, so she's not going to zip around as much as the Matriarch version does. Her reverse gyros ability can really mess with her opponents. After an enemy attack that targets her is resolved, she can drain a Soul Stone to move that model up to 6 inches. First off, it doesn't say the attack must succeed or damage her, it just has to have targeted her. Even if it fails, it still counts for this ability. Second, it doesn't say you have to move the model directly away or toward the Clockwork Queen. You could move the attacker around a corner so it doesn't have line of sight any longer. You could move it into hazardous terrain, out of engagement with you, into engagement with you, or out of range for whatever attack it just used. The Parts on Order ability can be used only once per turn, but lets you infuse a Soul Stone for removing a remains marker when it is made within 6 inches of the Clockwork Queen. Of course, that plays into the Load the Cannon ability, which increases the power bar on the crew card. On the back she has Explosive Calibration, which, as the name suggests, will take some planning. You target an enemy model within 12 inches of the Clockwork Queen, and then select a remains marker within 6 inches of that targeted model. It can be a friendly or enemy remains marker, that doesn't matter. However far the target is from the marker is how much damage the model suffers, up to a maximum of 4. You then remove the marker and make a new one in base contact with the targeted model. And since you removed a remains marker, raise the power bar on the crew card. If you drain a Soul Stone, you can get the Skim Schematics trigger, which lets you draw a card or two based on how many tactical actions are on that model stat card. It's probably best to look at the card before you drain the Soul Stone and figure out if it'll be worth it, because on Carlos Vasquez's card, you'd get only 1 card, so that's your call to make. Don't ignore the Stagger trigger from a mask though, since that can be handy with the Clockwork Queen's next magical attack. Exploit Vulnerability does 2 damage if it's successful, but you can also remove a staggered token when you declare the action. If you do, and the attack is successful, you do the 2 damage, and then you summon a self-repair bot into base contact with the target. Remember, summoned models come into play with both slow and summon tokens, and you can't have more than 3 self-repair bots on the table at one time. The 2 triggers can increase the damage or make another remains marker, which is always handy. If you opt for Critical Strike and are hoping to summon the self-repair bot, be careful not to kill the target. If the target is dead before you get to the summon, you don't get to summon the minion, since it says to put it into base contact with the target. Clockwork Queen's signature action, Quick Weld, can target any Ampersand model in her crew, and is one of 2 ways models can gain the improvised part tokens we saw on the crew card. She can use this on herself if she wants, since it doesn't say Other Ally, and the Tome trigger also gives an impact token. Goop, the totem for the Paradox Clockwork Queen, has an ability called Pile of Parts. This is the other way models can gain an improvised part token. This beta card says a friendly model gets this token when it activates within 6 inches of Goop. That will probably change to Allied model when it's all said and done, since the description of the improvised part token says it copies a tactical action from an Allied model, and if you gave this token to a versatile or out-of-keyword model, it wouldn't be very useful at all. Or maybe that's just something to keep in mind when handing these out. Either way, it means that Goop gets an improvised part token when it activates, since every model is both friendly to and allied with itself. On the back of Goop's card, we see that 3 of his 4 actions use remains markers in one way or another. The Gooped melee attack does 2 damage, and the Crow trigger makes a remains marker next to the target. All 3 of his tactical actions can be used as signature actions. Spilled Bolts makes a remains marker within 6 inches, which can give out Staggered, which can help out the Clockwork Queen with her Exploit Vulnerability attack. That's still good! Puts Goop in contact with a remains marker within 6 inches, and then removes it, which will increase the power bar on the crew card. Repurpose Parts is super handy in that it removes any number of tokens from a model. On an enemy model, you might get rid of Shielded, Focused, Hastened, and other helpful tokens, but if the target discards a card, you don't get to get rid of their tokens. On a friendly model, or Goop itself, you might get rid of injured, burning, staggered, and other unhelpful tokens. If you spend a soul stone when you use this action, you can draw up to 2 cards, which is a nice way of replenishing your control hand. The kitchen sink on its big ol' 50mm base is next, and it has a tricky ability called Don't Turn Your Back. This says that enemy models that activate engaged by the kitchen sink cannot take the interact action until the end of their activations. Now, the rules of interact make this sound like a pointless ability, since you can't interact while engaged, and if you use walk to leave engagement, you still can't interact during that activation. Well, some models have abilities like Don't Mind Me that let them interact while engaged. Others have special movement effects like we've seen on some Ampersand models where they get to place themselves outside of engagement. That's not the walk action, so they would normally be allowed to interact. The Don't Turn Your Back ability overrides all of those. If an enemy model activates engaged by the kitchen sink, it cannot take the interact action during that activation at all. It says, until the end of their activation, just in case Wyrd writes in some rare game effect that specifically says the model can take the interact action after completing its activation. Assorted slashing, dashing, and mashing implements is a fun, wild melee attack that must declare triggers, and of course, there's one for every suit. Power Surge damages the kitchen sink itself, but also increases the damage to the target. Sproing places the target into base contact with another model within 6 inches. The definition of another model means a model other than the kitchen sink, but if there is no other model around, then the trigger does nothing. Gold Wiring makes both players draw a card, and Arms Go Brrr damages every model within 2 inches of the kitchen sink, but doesn't affect the kitchen sink itself since this is a pulse. The Improvised Ammo tactical action works just like it does on the Mechanical Misfits card, giving an impact token to the kitchen sink or any other Ampersand model in its crew within 8 inches. Distress Beacon makes a remains marker within 8 inches and can pull Ampersand models to it. Like the Clockwork Queen's Voltaic Blast, you could also use this just to make remains markers as long as you don't have more than 5 on the table at a time. Lastly, the Fire Hose forces the target to discard a card or else be moved 3 inches away from the kitchen sink. Mr. Ambrose is the only henchman in the Ampersand keyword right now. He also has a speed 7, like the Matriarch of the Machine version of the Clockwork Queen. Aside from armor, which just about all the Ampersand models have, he has 2 pretty cool abilities. Toxic Waste turns remains markers into severe and hazardous terrain as long as they are within 12 inches of Mr. Ambrose. Note that it does not say friendly remains markers, so this applies to all remains markers in range. With no other specification for hazardous, this will do 1 damage to enemy models who touch the markers. Mr. Ambrose can use Expert Climber only once per activation, but that will probably be enough. This lets him ignore the need to climb or scale terrain while taking the walk action, and even lets him charge up terrain. That's pretty cool. Extended Claw has a killer 3-inch range and does 3 damage. More importantly, it can heal up to 3 other models in Mr. Ambrose's crew other than Mr. Ambrose himself, since it says another model. Also note it says damage suffered by the target. This attack inflicts 3 damage, but armor, shielded tokens, and other game effects can mean the target suffers less than that. The Electric Jolt missile attack has some interesting triggers you may want to play around with. A crow makes a remains marker, but a mask places the target into base contact with Mr. Ambrose. The arc trigger from the tome lets you take the Electric Jolt attack against another model, drawing range and line of sight from the original target. The 1 tactical action on the card can also be a signature action, but can be used only once per activation. Echoes of a Lost Mind does 1 damage to Mr. Ambrose, but lets him declare the interact action. Naturally, this can make or remove a scheme marker or do something related to the strategy, but if he drains a soul stone for the existential uncertainty trigger and made or targeted a marker with the action, It does 1 damage to all enemy models within an inch of that marker. Just keep in mind the regular rules for Interact still apply, so we can't do it while engaged or to target a marker touching an enemy model. Finally, we come to the self-repair bots, which have both armor and hard to kill. Mismatched Parts does 2 damage and can heal the bot, while the Scrapapult does 1 damage, but can remove a remains marker near it to increase that by 2. Of course, removing a remains marker like this fills up the power bar on the crew card. The Tome Trigger can then make another remains marker near the target. The Reform Self-Tactile action is worth looking at for a minute. It drains a soulstone, targets a remains marker within 10 inches, and kills the self-repair bot immediately without infusing a soulstone. You then summon a new self-repair bot, though really it's going to be the same physical model, into base contact with the targeted remains marker, which you remove. The new model will gain a slow token because it was summoned, but does not gain a summon token. Now, what's the big deal about not gaining a summon token? Models with summon tokens cannot take the interact action and do not infuse a soulstone when they are killed, and without it, this new model will be allowed to interact. Overall, this can move your self-repair bot 10 inches away and make a scheme marker with the queued task trigger if you get it. If your model was damaged at all, this also heals it back to full health. So that's our overview of the beta release Ampersand models. They may change before their final release later this year, but let us know what you think about them in the comments below and in our Discord. If you haven't already, join our Patreon for early ad-free access to all new long-form content, and be sure to visit the Malifaux University gift shop for the latest in Malifaux-themed shirts, hoodies, drinkware, and more. Links are in the notes below. And remember, play friendly games, keep it simple, and have fun.